This is our step-up lesson for topic 10, meaning that it is 7th grade standards. So this material will not be on your test. However, it is good to know, so we're going to practice adding, subtracting, multiplying, and dividing with negative numbers. Our essential question, how can you add, subtract, multiply, and divide with negative numbers? There's no vocab for this lesson. Example number 1, we have 2 adding problems. So our first one, -7 plus 4. Now a good way to think about this is to do it on a number line. So I'm going to go ahead and fill one in really quickly. And I'm just going to stop there. So this one starts at -7. And we're adding 4. When we add with negative numbers, that means we're trying to get back to 0 or close to 0 as we can. So if I'm adding 4, I'm going to be going 4 spaces. 1, 2, 3, 4, which lands me on -3, which is going to be closer to 0. So I know that my answer is correct. Our second problem, 8 plus -3. Now, if you see something like that, it's exactly the same as writing 8 minus 3. Because you're adding a negative is the same as subtracting. So the answer to this one would just be 5. Example 2, subtracting. Now, this is something to try to remember. When you have 2 negatives right next to each other like this, they both become positives. They both become pluses. So both of those become pluses, and you don't need 2 pluses right next to each other, 2 plus signs. So we just put 3 plus 9, which gives us an answer of 12. Again, for this problem here, we have 2 negative signs, and we turn them both into positive signs. Now I didn't change this negative because it was all by itself. You can't just get rid of it for fun. It has to be right next to each other, 2 symbols right next to each other. So now I have a -11 plus 6. This is very similar to what we did when we were adding. So we would start with -11. Remember, when we have a negative number, we're trying to get back to 0 or as close to it as we can. So we start at -11 and we add 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, which gives me -5. Example 3, multiplying is actually pretty simple because you just multiply like normal. So 3 times 8 is 24. Now here's the only thing you need to remember. If you have 1 positive and 1 negative like we do here, then your answer just becomes a -24. Now we're going to do the second one, multiply like normal. 9 times 6 is 54. But this time we have 2 negatives. So that means they cancel each other out. They become positive. So it's just regular 54. So if you have 1 negative, the answer is negative. If you have 2 negatives, the answer is positive. And of course, if you have 2 positives, the answer is positive. And example 4, dividing, very similar to multiplication. You just divide like normal. So 54 divided by 6, we know is 9. I have 2 negatives, so they cancel each other out. So it stays positive 9. And our last one, -63 divided by 7. We know that is also 9. But my answer becomes negative because I have 1 number that's a negative number. So just like multiplying, A positive and a negative becomes a negative. Two negatives become a positive. Here are 4 practice problems. There's one from each, one adding, subtracting, multiplying, dividing. Try to go back and look at the practice problems. I know this is difficult, but it's just to try to get you used to it. So when you go into middle school next year, you'll be a little bit more prepared. Don't forget a word problem, or if you're confused about something, leave me a question and rate your understanding.